Day 10. We're just leaving North Fork. It's going to be interesting today. We got to cross the Magruder, but it's probably going to be raining. Probably actually going to be raining the next few days. It's not raining right now. Well, I spoke too soon. It immediately started raining. It's going to be an interesting day.
Day 10 found us leaving North Fork and heading eventually to Lowell, Lowell. The most technical parts of Day 10 come at the beginning, but Day 10 is still a very long day, around 265 miles long. Then add things like rain, hauling extra fuel, and maybe some technical issues such as complete loss of front brakes, just for some random example, could make a 265 mile day feel even longer. One reason Day 10 is such a long day is that we would cross the Magruder corridor. This 101 mile long section of primitive road is the only access that crosses the vast expanses of the 1.2 million acre Selway Bitterroot Wilderness to the north and the 2.3 million acre Frank Church River of No Return Wilderness to the south. The corridor is not suitable for anything other than high clearance four-wheel drive vehicles, off-road motorcycles, and maybe some mountain bikes. For people traveling the route, it is recommended to camp somewhere along the way because it can take 8 to 10 hours to travel from one end to the other if you do so without stopping. And there are very few turnouts, so if two full-size vehicles meet head-to-head, one of them may have to back up for a very long way before finding room to pass. Obviously on dirt bikes, we were hoping to make the trip across the Magruder much faster than 8 to 10 hours, and we really didn't think the passing would become an issue if we even saw anyone at all. So why is it called the Magruder Corridor? Good question, glad you asked. The Magruder Corridor received its name because of a massacre that happened on the night of October 11, 1863. Lloyd Magruder was an unlucky gold miner who moved to Lewiston, Idaho in 1862 and opened a mule-driven pack train business and mobile store. That found him transporting and selling goods often on the old South Nez Perce Trail, which is now named after him, Lloyd Magruder. He had been very profitable at selling goods in the brand new Virginia city and was headed back to Lewiston with about 40 new mules, many of which he had just purchased at a bargain price in Bannock. He also had 6 horses and 8 hired men with him and a considerable amount of gold. About 15 miles into Idaho, they camped for the night, and some of the men conspired to kill Lloyd and take his haul. One of them, Christopher Lowell, hit Lloyd in the skull with an axe as he slept, and then he and 2 other conspirators killed 4 more of the innocent men and took their ill-gotten haul. It's likely that they would have gotten away with the scheme if not for a friend of Magruder's in Lewiston named Hill Beachy. Beachy suspected something was amiss when the murderous crew stayed a night in Lewiston before heading towards California the next day. He was sure enough that something was wrong that he tracked them down all the way to California and eventually brought them back to Lewiston and to justice. The real story is quite an interesting one if you have the time and desire to read it. But let's get back to the reason why we're really here, to do some epic dirt bike adventure riding. The Magruder Corridor is some of the most remote country in all of the lower 48, so self-service would be non-existent, and there are millions of acres of wilderness on either side of the corridor. So our goal was to cross it quickly and safely to get to Elk City, where we hoped to eat some lunch and fuel up completely, plus a couple of extra gallons each. The reason we needed the extra fuel was because Elk City was the last place we'd be able to buy gas for the next 425 miles. The first part of Day 10 took us from North Fork west along the Salmon River Road, then north on Indian Creek, up Henderson Ridge Road, and then to our first challenge point of the day, which was the Divide Trail, called the Divide Trail because it runs along the Idaho-Montana border.
divide trail. Do some trail or single track or something up here before we head across the Magruder.
Before we get too far into day 10 though, maybe we ought to try out a sketchy river crossing. It's for fun.
Oh ho!
I hate to say it, but I think there was a part of me that already knew that I wasn't going to make it across this river cleanly.
Ah! Oh my gosh. Probably in the pipe. Hold on. Let's bring it up a little more. You don't want to lift the front end up and dump it out the back. See, help us tip up that front. Get it in gear. That's gonna tip over, Colby. Maybe not. Close. Want me to push the brake? What do you think? It's in gear. It's in gear? Okay. Not in any gear. Is it coming out? No. Little. Should I try kicking it? In gear, huh? Yeah. Drop it back down. Put it in neutral. Try starting it again, I guess. Yeah, like it's slow.
Well, we had that out of the way, and I had narrowly avoided the catastrophe of vapor locking a bike. So now we hoped, okay, mostly I hoped, that I could stop doing stuff like that and we could just ride. not sure if anyone else noticed, but I did. This brake squeezing right here was the beginning of something major for me.
Oh, we see a challenge photo.
We would stay on the Divide Trail for a while and eventually turn onto Spring Creek, which would take us to an out and back up to our second challenge point of the day, Blue Nose Lookout. It's just really squishy. Get a little bit of resistance, but that's about it. So we're going down in low gear and back brake. I think I had become numb to pain at this point, but not in a good way where I could once again ride at peak performance, but in a way where new pain no longer registered because nothing was worse than what I was already going through. My reaction to this small crash coming up kind of shows that numbness.
Oh, it's really hard. Need those Allen wrenches. That seemed like a never-ending nightmare with it being so rainy and nothing was cut. Well, we finally made it to this road. Now we gotta go down to the Magruder. I'm sure I'm gonna wish I could be on a single track by the end of that. Especially in the rain. Probably be frozen solid. I forgot we have to go up to a lookout first before we can go across the Magruder. It's called Blue Nose Lookout. I was sitting in the same thing, my hands are freezing.
From Blue Nose Lookout, we would head down the mountain and jump back on Spring Creek. It would get us heading north again, connecting us to State Line Trail, then to West Fork. We'd stay on West Fork for a while, and eventually turn onto Coal Creek. Coal Creek would connect to Blue Joint. Blue Joint would connect to Bear Cone. Bear Cone would connect to Tough Bonnie Blue Trail, which would finally dump us onto, you guessed it, the Magruder Corridor. Just a little ways down the Magruder was our third challenge point, the Nez Perce Pass, right on the border of Idaho and Montana.
Alright, Blue Nose Lookout now. We bundled up a little bit. Get ready for the long road haul.
You have any warmer gloves?
Huh?
Those look pretty warm.
You'd think they would be. They're probably wet, huh? They're not waterproof, are they?
Should I set it up or just take it? I think we set it up over there in the road last time.
Yeah. It does it backwards.
At this point, we had already begun the 101-mile Magruder corridor grind. There was one offshoot we needed to take to get a challenge point where we had to go up to the Burnt Knob Lookout, which is actually one of my favorite views of the entire tour. This spot here was a fairly formative incident, which I'll talk about in more detail as we get closer. You got a what?
Caffeine.
You got a what?
I gotta take a little shot of caffeine here. I was about.
Selway River. That's my favorite river. Thinking it's probably about another 15 or 20 miles to Burnt Knob Lookout. Maybe we'll stop there and eat something, then try to burn the rest of the way into Elk City. We gotta end up at Lowell eventually tonight. Oh yeah, the Magruder massacre.
Somebody killed him at a bunch of his party or something. That's it. This road is named after him. Floyd Magruder.
Riding down these gravel and dirt roads at higher speeds with no front brakes was unsettling to say the least. Yet, as exhausted as we were, this type of road riding had a tendency of lulling us into a state of semi-drowsiness. So our reaction times weren't exactly crisp, and mine was more than likely worst of us all. Unfortunately, I wasn't filming, but soon after this we came around a corner where half of the road was washed out and missing. Waking up, I realized that there was no way I was going to be able to avoid going into the washed out pit and off of the mountain. So, of course, I grabbed for the front brake, but there was nothing. All I could do at that point was try to stop using only the rear brake and engine and hope it would be enough to stop me. It was not. I skidded and slid off the road and piled up into the rocks and dirt. I nosed the front of the bike into the ground in an effort to avoid flipping even farther down the mountain, but doing so caused a lot of damage. My handlebars were bent down into my lap, and because the bar bolts were bent so badly, there was no way to repair or even remove them, though I actually did have spare bolts with me. My poor chainsaw was in pieces, and the whole front end of my bike was just messed up. We pulled the wreck back up onto the road, did what we could to straighten things out, and then limped onward. I was now in more pain than I would ever wish on anyone, with new bruises and fresh scrapes from this most recent rock massage. I still had no use of my front brakes, and now my steering just felt completely wrong. We still had about 75 or 80 miles left to go just to get to Elk City, where we could eat and gas up. Then another 55 to 60 miles to Lowell, including a single track section and a steep downhill switchbacking gravel road down into the valley. Needless to say, I was concerned. I didn't think I could make it 5 or 10 miles with my bike in this condition, or my body, let alone 140 miles. But I kept that to myself and gritted my teeth and pressed on. After all, what else could I do? That's the Tour of Idaho. You figure it out. You suck it up, fix what you can, find hidden strength that you didn't know you had, and you keep going. No one was coming to save us, and I couldn't walk out of here on a broken foot. So, we kept going.
Brakes were out, so I had another pretty good crash back there off into a washout. Unfortunately, it hurt the bike this time more than it hurt me. Kind of bent the handlebars back. They're really low back in my lap.
From Butte Knob Lookout, we would head back down and jump on the Magruder corridor once again, until heading north towards Elk City on Trail 468. But before we made it to Elk City, we'd grab our 5th challenge point of the day along the Red River view. From Butte Knob Lookout, it was about 65 miles to Elk City. We were hoping to get there in time to get some dinner and enough gas to last us until the end of the day tomorrow, since Lowell doesn't have a gas station and there wouldn't be any other fuel stops until we got to Superior at the end of day 11. Personally, I was just hoping to make it down the mountain. From the Red River view, we needed to catch several different connector trails and roads to get into Elk City. Maybe I won't bore you with the details this time, but you can see we zigged and zagged quite a bit.
Okay, we're gonna drop down into Elk City and get gas.
Okay.
So we had made it to Elk City. We grabbed a burger and some gas station snacks for dinner tonight and for the trail tomorrow, just in case the small store in Lowell was closed by the time we got there. We also needed to completely fill up on gas plus about 2 to 3 gallons extra each in order to have enough to make it to Superior at the end of the day tomorrow. Earlier in the tour, my gas bag had slipped down and got caught up in my rear tire and torn to pieces. So I had to resort to 4 Gatorade bottles filled with fuel tied to my rear fender. I had very little hope that they would survive the 75 miles we had left to Lowell. From Elk City we headed north and hopped onto Flatiron Ridge Road, then eventually onto a half-point bonus single-track trail that would take us up to our final challenge point of Day 10, Anderson Butte Lookout.
Got dinner at Elk City. Now we got about 40 miles to Lowell. tried bleeding it, tried adding brake fluid, which I do have some of, but I don't know what's wrong with it. The calipers might be stuck, or not really sure. But it's already made me crash once, because you go to grab what you think should be there, like that. And if it's not, you kind of panic.
From Anderson Butte Lookout, we'd face the last leg of day 10. It would be a grind with no front brakes. It was a long, dark descent, starting by rejoining Anderson Butte Recreation Trail, then joining the American River Trail, which would end with a steep switchbacking road down to the Selway, and then finally the last 20 miles down the Selway River Road and into Lowell. I have to admit, at this point the cards were really stacking up against me. I had some serious thinking to do and some questions that needed answers. Could I fix my front brakes? Could I get my handlebars into a more conducive riding position? Would not having a working chainsaw make blocked trails impassable? Could I endure this level of pain for 3 more days? How would it affect the team if I kept trying to press on in this state? My mind was buzzing with all these questions and more as I limped down the mountain. Here you can hear I'm trying to work it all out as I ramble.
So I'm rolling off this hill. I got no front brakes. I got no helmet light, so I can only see about 30 feet in front of me. So I'm just going slow so that I don't have a corner surprise me and go flying off a cliff. I think it's straight down. Little bits I can glimpse. It's like a sheer cliff over there. But I'm realizing that I gotta call this quits. I'm just slowing Colby and Luke down, and those guys definitely have what it takes to finish the tour. And I do at least I think I do on a solid bike, a working bike and a working body. I've crashed so many times. I think my foot's broken. My back's completely black. My back and my butt just from a hard hit I took on day one. Not sure if that's a cracked tailbone or feels a little higher than a tailbone, but I think I dislocated my pinky finger and just it compounds, you know. Then you start riding and favoring those areas. You start riding dumb, you start riding too slow, too careful, not confident enough. And as part of a team, I think it's important to be able to, oh geez, I might have just lost my back brakes. I think it's important to be able to know when to call it quits. I didn't lose them, but they're getting squishy. I wish those guys were here right now, because I'd just tell them to buzz into Lowell and get to sleep. I know they wouldn't leave me up here on the mountain anyways, but yeah, I don't have much back brakes. I have a little bit, but I'm gonna have to roll down this thing in first gear. It was a goal of mine to do the tour, the Legacy Route tour. We did accomplish it, me and Luke, in 21. But that was a 10-day, 2,200 mile version. This is a 13-day, like 2,500 mile version. I haven't told those guys this yet. I think they know it's coming though. Too bad that it has to be tonight, where they could hurry in, get a better night's sleep, get ready for tomorrow without having to wait around for me. They're both way ahead of me though. I'm just limping off this stupid mountain.
I can be a very stubborn individual, and I'm capable of dealing with buckets of pain. But at this point, I was actually in more pain than I thought I could even continue to handle. Those who know me know that I am a man of faith, and I have a close relationship with God. It's something that I've developed over my life, and has reached the point of being personally undeniable. I understand that everyone is different and on a unique path, but for me, God is real. So during this descent, I began another one of my desperate conversations with Him. I told Him that I was still willing to continue, and that in fact I really still wanted to complete this ride if possible. But not if it was going to cost Luke and Colby their success, or worse, if I was going to cost any of us major injuries or loss. I told Him that of course I was willing to swallow my pride and admit defeat, and if it meant never seeing my wife or kids or grandkids again, that was the obvious decision. But stubborn as I am, I would need to know somehow when or if to call it quits. Just then it came into my mind that my front brakes were the key to this decision. If I could fix the brakes, then I should continue on, and it would be okay. If not, then it was simply too risky to keep going, and I would need to retire from the tour. So I began to consider all the ways I might try to repair my brakes. I would try to bleed the line and see if there was an air bubble causing the failure. I had brake fluid, so this was doable. Before that, I would need to search and see if there was a hole or leak anywhere. Maybe the calipers were jammed open, and if I could free them and get the brakes working again, all would be well. I started to regain some hope and some of my fire. As we descended, my last battery died for my GoPro, so I didn't get our triumphant, although very late, entrance into Lowell, but we did make it. Luckily, the store at the Three Rivers was still open, so we checked into our cabin, got some gas station style food once again, ate, and I got to work on my brakes.
Come back tomorrow. You know it's not enough that I can make you laugh. Why try to borrow even more time you never have? It's too late, too late, too late, too late. Slide down the rooftop, slide down the rooftop. It's too late, too late, too late, too late. You'd have to rebuild me from the ground up, from the ground up. There's always something, and I can try to change, but you want something else. stay.